Hello, my name is Brian Wolf. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Buffalo, and we're going to do a walkthrough of the algorithmic dealer simulation. So we know we're in the right document when we look up here at the top. It says 2016 algorithmic dealer simulation. So you'll notice that it's a pretty big spreadsheet. All right, there's a lot going on in here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to break it down piece by piece and kind of walk through the different pieces of this first. And then in part two, we're going to start talking about different trading strategies and how we're going to set ourselves up to create new strategies and create some new problems. All right, so this is really just meant to kind of walk us through the spreadsheet to see what the different parts are. The first thing you'll notice is that over here in the upper left hand corner there's this outputs and values. So this is where we're actually going to see the fruit of our labor, what kind of gross profits we have. Once we deduct some of the order processing costs, what we have from a net profit standpoint. And then our inventory can change in value, and so there's going to be some adjustment there. And we can see our total profits, and then we're going to convert that over to this thing called utility, because in terms of risk aversion and whether a dealer wants to hold some inventory, we have to kind of switch from dollars to utility. So dollars can give us utility, but then there's this other thing that we don't really want to take on a lot of risk, and as a result of taking on risk, we might actually penalize ourselves some to deduct some utility. And so at the end of the day, we have this total utility number, and that's really what we're going to focus on for the spreadsheet. So the goal here, the goal of all of this is to get as high a utility as possible. All right, enough said. That's all we got to do, right? Easy peasy. So what we're going to find is that we're using this simulation where we're going to come up with some kind of strategy over here in columns N through R. And we're going to test our strategy, and that's what a simulation is going to do. It's going to take our strategy, it's going to take something that other people do, these other dealers, and then there's going to be some orders that arrive, and we're going to randomly draw from some distribution how these other actors are going to participate in this market, and we're going to talk about how we see that in these columns. But you can imagine that there's this other dealer and I that are competing for incoming orders. And when this incoming order comes in, either the other dealer or I get it. And we're going to do this over and over and over. And in order to kind of get a good average as to see what's going to happen, we're going to run a simulation. So we're actually, for every problem and every strategy that we concoct, we're going to run this over and over and over 400 times. You can see this number of iterations. And at the end of the day, we're going to come up with some average of how our strategy works against this other dealer. All right. So it's not going to be just one time we beat them and maybe next time we might not. We're going to average this. And so we're going to come up with some kind of stable average of how well does this strategy do relative to these other dealers. All right. And so you can see here in this control panel, we're going to start with a problem and end with a problem. All right, so what are problems? Well, problems are going to be these guys down here in the yellow and orange boxes, okay, in rows 47 through 52. And we're going to talk a little bit about what makes up a problem, but you can imagine it just being kind of a trading environment. Is the volatility really high, okay? Are you a company that has lots of order processing costs, okay? So those kinds of, so if we said volatility is really high, so overnight volatility especially, we're going to put a really big number in this overnight volatility. So for a problem, so problem number one, that we're going to try and imagine what do we do when overnight volatility is really high. But that might depend on how risk averse we are or whether we expect some kind of adverse selection. So we're going to have to kind of change all these different numbers and kind of poke around, okay? If we're going to be more scientific about it, we're really going to come up with some kind of strategy to create a set of problems and test them. And so this control of simulations box allows us to test a block of problems for a certain set of strategies. Well, what's a strategy? Okay, well, we're going to create a strategy over here in columns N through R. All right, it's getting away from us. So in columns N through R, this is actually our trading strategy. And you can see in each of these different cells, we actually have some computer code that says, what is my bid price going to be? Well, my bid price is going to be whatever the midpoint is so over here in L, minus 3 cents. That's my strategy, okay? And so I'm going to come up with some logic that's going to tell me how to set my prices, both my bid and my ask, how to set my depths. Do I want to take all of an incoming order or just what I've quoted? In other words, what my depth is quoted at, okay? That's going to be what comprises our strategy. And we're going to come up with all kinds of different ways to trade. And as we come up with new ways to trade, if you scroll down here to rows 70 through 84, you can see the simulation comes preloaded with 14 different strategies, okay? Whether we're going to behave in an inventory management kind of strategy, where we're going to stop taking more orders and try and mean revert our inventory back to zero, or if we're going to just dictate how do we determine the spread, or do we just do nothing? And so all of these are valid strategies that we're going to come up with. How do we tell it to do that strategy up here in these boxes? And we're going to save them, and they're going to get saved down here in these rows, okay? And so our control of simulation is actually going to take each of those different problems and each of those different strategies, and we're going to run a test to see how do they perform. So the way this is actually going to play out, and we're going to ignore these boxes down here until we get to our competition day. But the way the trading simulation is going to work is there's going to be 3 things that kind of happen in each block of time. There's going to be this other dealer. So these other dealers are going to submit some orders. So they're going to have a bid and an ask, and you can see here's their bid price, here's their ask price, here's their bid depth, here's their ask depth, okay? And so you can see that makes up for a spread of 14 cents, and the midpoint between their 2 orders is 46.78, okay? So you can think of this first, the other dealer is going to set up their bid and their ask. Now we get the luxury of looking at that bid and the ask, and we can say, the second thing that's going to happen is I'm going to set up a bid and ask. So I'm going to say, here's the price that I want to buy at. Here's the price I want to sell at. Here's how much I want to buy at that price. Here's how much I want to sell at this price. Now, when an order comes in, if it's a really large order, do I want to take more than 15 shares, or maybe I just want to take my 15 and let the other guy have the rest? Okay, that's what this full versus quoted is going to say. And then the third thing that happens is, so after the other guy sets his bid and ask, I'm going to set my bid and ask and submit a quote. An order may or may not arrive. You can see here in this first row, no order actually arrives. But in the second time we go do this, so at 10 o'clock, nothing happens. At 10:30, we're going to start again. He's going to submit his bid and ask. I'm going to submit my bid and ask. And then a sell order arrives. Okay? And in this case, what happens is that sell order, so they want to sell 1 share. Well, who ends up getting that? Well, I do. So see where it says mine? In other cases, it'll actually say the other dealer. Okay? But in this case, I end up getting this sell order. So when somebody sells, that means I'm buying. So that means I bought 1 share at 46.98. So if you look over here in this my executions, and so now once we kind of get to the other side of these blue boxes, we're going to kind of see what happens. So you can see the order arrived and I executed 1 share. I bought 1 share, so my inventory is positive 1, as opposed to, you can see down here in row 12 of this example, there's a negative 8 shares, so I've actually sold, okay? But since a sell order came in, I bought it. I bought it for 46.98, so that's exactly the price that I put up as my bid price over here, okay? And you can see I actually made some profit. So how did I make profit? It looks like I made 3 cents profit. Well, if I bought at 46.98, if we come over here and look at the midpoint is 47.01. So we're going to pretend, again, just like we talked about in class, that this midpoint is the real value, the true value of the security. If that's the case, since I got to buy it at 46.98, I got a deal, right? So I got it for 3 cents cheaper than the actual price of the security. So I made a profit, 3 cents, all right? Oh, but wait, look, order processing cost. What is that? Well, for every share that I buy, I'm going to have to pay an order processing cost of 4 cents. Well, gosh, how am I going to make any profit? It's going to be tough when the order processing costs are that high, okay? So whenever our order processing cost is set to 4 cents, all right, we're going to have to deduct that processing cost from our gross profit, and so this is on a per share basis. So that means even though I made 3 cents, all right, I bought it cheap, I had to pay some extra, which means I actually lost money on that trade. Doggone it. All right, so I haven't had any inventory, so my inventory couldn't change in value over this period. We'll see that here down in the next row, okay? But you can see this period's total profit was minus a cent, all right? So far, I'm not a very good trader, am I? Remember I talked about there's this other thing called risk aversion? So we can make profit from just the sheer ability to buy at a discount or sell at a profit, at a premium, okay? And we'll get this period's gross profit from that. We can actually make some money by our inventory changing value. So if in between 10:30 and 11 o'clock, right? So as we go from row 5 to row 6, if the price changes of the security, the true value of the security changes, I can actually make some money off of its inventory change in value, okay? And you'll see that here in these boxes. But then this other thing is called risk aversion. So if it really makes me anxious as a market maker, as a dealer, to hold this inventory, all right, we're going to penalize ourselves for getting a really large stack of inventory in either direction, either positive or negative. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the volatility in the period, all right, and we're going to penalize ourselves based on our risk aversion and the volatility in this period. And that's going to give us some kind of disutility of inventory risk, all right? So if I want to run a quick problem here, so here's how we actually run a problem. So we'll use problem number 1, and we'll just look at one strategy. So let's look at strategy number 1, so it'll run pretty fast. So I'm going to hit this box right here. So I've told the simulation control I want to do problem number 1. That's this guy right here. I'm going to use strategy number 1, but just strategy number 1. That's our spread equals 0.04, depth equals 20, all full, no inventory management. If I wanted to actually look at that, I could come over here and put in a 1 and then load strategy. So that's what this strategy is going to look like. Okay, so I would put 1 in this P1 box and then click the little box right next to it that says load strategy. I don't have to do that. The simulation control is smart enough to just pull that up on its own. So you don't have to go back and take a look at this, but we're going to look at this since we're going to test it. Once I've told it the problem and the strategy that I want to run, I can click test algo strategies. Okay, so that's how quick it did that 400 times. So it was like it played that game 400 times. And you can see, so all of our numbers have changed here. So in this first period, here's the price and depths that I set, right? A buy order came in for 4. The other guy got that, not me, okay? So my inventory is still 0. But you can see in the next line, in period 4, all right, another buy order comes in, but I got it. So I sold at 46.80, right, because it was a buy order coming in. And my cumulative inventory is now -2. All right. So you'll come over here, and since our risk aversion is 0, so we don't really care how much inventory we take on, it's not going to really matter that the volatility is fairly low. We're not going to penalize ourselves at all. And at the end of the day, we're going to have some kind of utility over here in column AI and AJ. So this is going to tell me this period's utility, gain or loss. And then here's my cumulative utility, gain or loss. Okay? We want this to be as positive as possible. And you can see down here, eventually it starts to kind of creep up, okay, over time.